Today on Law Next, we're going to take a deep dive into the artificial intelligence that drives the legal research platform Ross Intelligence. On episode 48 of this podcast, I interviewed the two founders of Ross Intelligence, Andrew Arruda, the CEO, and Jimoh Ovbiagele, the CTO. Today, Jimoh is back with a focus on his CTO hat, and we're also joined by Stergios Anastasiadis. Stergios joined Ross earlier this year from Shopify, where he was director of engineering, and earlier he worked at Google as engineering manager. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to Law Next, the podcast that features the entrepreneurs and innovators who are driving what's next in law. We'll get to today's interview in just a moment, but first, let's hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now on to our interview, which was recorded live during my recent visit to the Ross R&D labs in Toronto. All right, I am Bob Ambrogi, and I am here in Toronto in a conference room somewhere, not quite sure where we are, and I am here with the tech brains behind Ross Intelligence. These are the people who make it work and make it happen. So what I'm going to ask each of you to do is to just briefly introduce yourself. So Jimoh, introduce yourself.
So I'm one of the founders and I'm the CTO of Ross. My background's computer science, AI. That's my brief background.
Yeah. And you were one of the founders. I mean, you founded it when you were really still a student, right? I mean, you were.
Yes, I was studying computer science at the University of Toronto. I was 21 at the time. Ended up leaving school to start the company. My mom wasn't that happy, but she's gotten used to the idea now. But I started it when I was at U of T.
Yeah. It's got to be a good thing to tell your mom you're the CTO of a up and coming technology company. That's not a bad thing. Stergios, introduce yourself.
Sure, I'm the head of engineering at Ross. I've been with the team for just over half a year and loving the startup mode and feel. I've done kind of the startup experience, but I've been at a few big companies like Google and Shopify. So I'm a software developer at heart, and I'm looking forward to kind of making a big contribution in this industry.
And you came to Ross Intelligence fairly recently.
Yeah, just in the past 6 months.
Yeah. So I think what we want to do today is talk a little bit about some of the technology that makes Ross work, but also the more broadly how this relates to the legal profession and why this kind of matters to lawyers and other legal professionals. So we talk a lot about Ross being an AI-driven legal research platform. What does that mean?
Yeah, so AI is sort of a loaded term, a buzzword. To break it down, AI is just trying to replicate facets of human intelligence. The field is not as advanced as maybe Terminator would make it seem, but it's really more of a goal and ideal that computer scientists are trying to achieve to replicate human intelligence. So we mainly focus on natural language processing. Trying to give software computers the ability to understand and generate language, and machine learning giving software the ability to learn. And that's really important because it's really hard to program the rules of language into the software. So we'd rather have it learn. So that's why the machine learning and the natural language processing come hand in hand. So for anyone who doesn't know what our product does, we use artificial intelligence to find lawyers the best decisions in support of their case. So we try to find them on-point decisions. The way legal research is done today is that you do keyword searches on one of the traditional platforms, and you get thousands of results, and you try to comb through it until you find what you're looking for. So it's sort of like a pyramid that's upside down. We believe the better way to do it is to start with the point and then to widen out. So why the traditional platforms are unable to find you on point decisions because they don't understand the text that you're putting into the system. So they look at a sentence and they look at independent words. But really, with language, the words relate to each other. They modify each other. And together they have meaning. They're not independent. And then there are so many ways to express the same thing. So there's this idea of synonymy, semantic similarity that the older traditional technologies don't capture. So those are the problems that we try to solve with machine learning and natural language processing, is giving software the ability to, I don't want to say understand, but gather the meaning of legal text so that we could find the right cases for attorneys. So they're not spending hours upon end combing through cases.
So what you're saying is you're helping them. You're using machine learning to help lawyers get to the most relevant case first, and then kind of expand out from there, rather than the other way around.
Yes. See what cases it cites. See what cases cite it. See what negative treatments. That's just a much better experience for an attorney than doing it the other way around.
Yeah.
Like it's essentially like finding combing through a haystack to find that needle.
Yeah. Does that resonate with you? I mean, is that how you see this working?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two dimensions that underpin what Jimoh referred to is one, the moving of all the bits and bytes underneath that is extremely important, and I think the industry has gone through leaps and bounds with respect to the latest tech stacks that are out there, and we're always trying to be right there to take advantage of performance and speed and data presence. And then on the top end of that is being able to provide this information in like easy consumable ways to our lawyers, so that they can read the signals really quickly on how relevant the information is. And we're spending a lot of time bisecting a lot of the information that we gather about how lawyers work and provide good experiences for them.
Yeah. How is a search that I do in Ross different than a search that I would have done, traditionally done on a Lexis or a Westlaw or any other platform where I go in and do a Boolean search or whatever? Lawyers are gotten used to, I think, using those kind of Boolean connectors or just going into Westlaw and typing a natural language search there, what Westlaw calls it. So how is what the lawyer is doing on Ross different or not different from other research platforms?
Yeah. So as you know, what you had to do on Lexis or Westlaw is use Boolean terms and connectors. You type them in, you submit them, you see what cases come back. Maybe sometimes you don't choose the right words because what the words that are in your mind may be different from what the judges use. So you have to keep on iterating on those terms and connectors. So
right. Boolean search is hell, in other words.
Boolean search is hell. It's very painstaking. And then they also have what they call natural language. We have different definitions of natural language. So really they just mean is just normal keyword search. So like oil and gas leases, just plain keywords.
Right. They're just taking the words out of your query and doing a search around those words. In other words, you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How you search with ROS is asking a full research question, a complete sentence. For example, in New York, can student debt be discharged in the event of a bankruptcy since 2011? So a complete grammatical sentence. And why that's important, it allows you to fully articulate what you're looking for, which gives us information to actually find what you're looking for. Imagine if we communicated with keywords. If I just said pizza, it's like, what about pizza? Are you hungry? Do you want to eat now? Do you want to eat later?
Yeah.
It's like, so it allows you to explain what you're looking for with complete thoughts, with complete ideas. And we're able to actually process that, understand it to find you exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah. And I think to complement Jimoh's perspective on that, it not only is that the surface just a simple complete query, but behind the scenes we continuously iterate on improving that type of understanding, and always taking into account queries that have been asked in the domain in the past, and then use that information to improve continuously the infrastructure. So on one end, our incumbents don't have that sense of like continuous improvement, because it's just a parsing retrieval type of exercise. Where here, the more the user uses and queries the system, the better and richer the data gets, and future queries become much more accurate.
Yeah, and that's the machine learning component, right? It's trying to look at past data, extract universal patterns from them that it can apply to future data that it hasn't seen before. So the more data it sees, the better those universal patterns are.
Yeah. Does that mean it's learning about me, or does it mean it's learning universally about all the people who are using your system and using that knowledge cumulatively to enhance each search?
Yes, today it's learning cumulatively about like what legal questions and legal answers look like. In the future, um, depending on what our users want, they may want their system to be more personalized to them, just like your YouTube feed is very personalized to you. So there's an opportunity there. There's potential there for that personalization of your legal answers.
Yeah. Does it matter for lawyers to understand how machine learning works, or does it just matter that it works?
Yeah, I think the proof is in actually using the system and making that connection to your current understanding of what you're expecting for it to serve up as answers, and actually what ROS gives you. And I think building those types of connections, I think, are really important. And so at the surface, just simply talking about it obviously is ambiguous, but starting to use it and seeing how relevant the good case law comes back, and then the ability to dig deep and looking further into kind of the information that you want, I think will build the trust in the system. So it's important that we get our users to like start using, building out those queries and seeing the results.
Yeah. I think as technologists, sometimes we want to tell them about all the advanced technologies that we're using, but at the end of the day, it's like, what user experience are we providing? That's the only thing that the user cares about, because they have so many concerns. They don't care like what AI models you're using or what programming language you're using.
Right.
we like to focus on the outcome for the customer, the
Right.
user experience, and then we work our way backwards.
Yeah. There are some who care. I mean, I was just recently at the annual meeting of the American Association of Law Libraries, and law librarians are among those in law firms who have kind of taken on the role of kind of vetting software, helping to select and oversee software within their firms. And there's certainly a lot of talk at that convention about issues of transparency with respect to the algorithms that various companies are developing. Do you think that there needs to be transparency around what you're doing in terms of making, so that those who want to understand it can understand it better, basically?
I think absolutely. If there is an appetite, and like you said, there's for sure potential, groups, types of people that are interested. We're more than happy to kind of dig in and dive deep into kind of what are the inner workings of the system, so the community feels a lot more comfortable with what we're doing at all levels, like both from our experience and then how maybe the algorithms work and why. Whenever we're given that opportunity, I think it's important to be as clear and as transparent as possible.
Yeah. I think I would qualify transparency with that. It must be explainable, because a lot of the techniques, they're very mathematical in nature. So even if we provided the transparency, the end user might not be able to understand it. So the even harder challenge is like explaining to them, like why a certain, in our case, decision was brought back over another. So that might be highlighting the key sentences from that decision that were pertinent to the question, but showing them how the data flows through like the neural network and the functions that are computed would be, I think, probably too much.
Yeah. So how do you make software understand what lawyers are talking about?
Well, that's a loaded question. So I from my perspective, I can just give more of the underlying infrastructure stuff. I'll leave it to the expert Jimoh to kind of build on top of that. The most important element in the system is data, and if the segmentation of the information is sufficient and rich enough, then that will allow systems downstream to take advantage of all that context and all that type of information to make the appropriate decisions. So I see a significant contributor to the success of this flow, the organization of the data, how clean it is, and how explicit it identifies itself, and then being able to give it to the machine learning experts quickly to be able to process the information in the downstream system. So ingestion of the data is important, and there's a huge topic of conversation that we can have on that in this space. Cleaning it up and making it quickly available is an underlying really important element for the success. And then
on the NLP side, we essentially bring the systems to elementary school, where we essentially break down language into its elements. So the grammatical structure and the vocabulary. So the grammatical structure, concepts that we've probably all forgotten about or just don't think about, like an adjective, a verb, a subject, a predicate.
I'm a writer and I don't think about those.
Yeah, it's like all that stuff. It's just like the So it's essentially what that is like, what word is this word playing? What role is it playing in the overall sentence? That helps compose the meaning. And then you have to learn the vocabulary, not only what words mean generally, but what words mean in the legal domain, and then what the word means in the context which it's being used, because words have different senses. So we're teaching the system the elements of language so that it could reason, deduce.
Does it matter that it's legal language, or is training something against legal language just a matter of what data you're using? Otherwise, it would be the same as any other set of data.
The grammar is the same. The vocabulary is different. But there's also information outside of the text itself that you have to consider, like whether something's a leading case, whether it's in your jurisdiction, whether
it's identifiable as a fact, or a motion.
Yeah, does it match your fact pattern? Does it match your procedural posture? So taking the context, the meta decision into account is really important.
Right.
Yeah.
Sergio, you worked Google, Shopify, other tech companies. What interested you about coming to work for a legal software company?
Yeah, it's my history in terms of the tech contributions has always been disruption. And when I started talking to Jimoh and Andrew about this opportunity, outside of seeing their passion about like making an impact in some of our like pure goals of democratizing the law, that path was a path that I think needed innovation and technology contributions that like could allow us to then take our vision much quicker to our customers. And that's the kind of pattern of work that I've been involved with, either in startup, but even in the Google and Shopify experiences. They all work in kind of this fast pace, break down problems and try to innovate and allow for that technology to serve as a breakthrough in the area. And I thought that this was a great combination. And
so I don't know how it came about in the first place that you came aboard, but was there a point when you were considering this that you kind of looked around at what's out there in terms of technology and like a light bulb went off?
Yeah, well, I think we had quite a few discussions. Yeah. It wasn't just one outside of like trying to understand the industry and tips that both Jimoh and Andrew provided me. So it took quite a few discussions to persuade me so I can get an idea of the landscape. But I did see the potential of kind of bringing some of the experiences I have in the technology industry here to be a change agent and enable the NLP and the experiences that we want to bring to the country, to the customer base as a whole, to make a huge difference in the industry.
Yeah,
I did take a look at kind of the incumbents and what they offered, and to me, even at the surface, what Ross is doing is significantly different, and that's kind of also what intrigued me as well.
Yeah. So Ross has been around for 5 years now. Is that what it was? 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah, okay. So you came into not a mature company, but a company that's been working on its product for a few years and has gone through some evolutions with that product over those years. So I'm assuming that in coming in, you saw potential to take that even farther than where it is.
Right.
So I mean, where do you see what's the universe look like as you start to look forward in terms of what you want to do?
Yeah, and so for sure there was product market fit, and what was available there was from the simple like query reply perspective, it did its job. The three pillars that I think will then push it to the next level. One is more research, like more focus on the NLP element and bringing latest and greatest ideas to the table, and being able to pivot from there. What makes it into the product. The second thing
What is that? I'm not sure I follow you there. So when you say more research, you mean more? You're not talking about more data. You're talking about ability to deliver better results.
Correct. Yeah. Just we need to be at top of game when it comes to delivering accuracy and good law to our customers, and continually refining our algorithms and models that we deploy. And that needs focus and needs touch points with universities and other institutions that are like in this space. So that's the number one, and we've pivoted like very, very successfully this year in that for how we're structured as a team. The second element is being able to take advantage of all the third-party software that's out there that companies have put in place that then becomes a lesser concern for us, and our development process becomes a lot quicker when it gets to pushing stuff out the door.
Are you going to talk about legal specific third-party software or just development software and other
development software that specifically supports all the natural language processing work that we need to do? And then the third thing is leveling up our experiences and making the interface that the lawyers interact with, very simple, very integrated into their workflow, and allow them to get to the results they want and use really quickly. And so having them be able to use the system and seeing the value right from the get-go, right from the first few queries that they enter, is extremely important for the success of the product.
Yeah. What about you, Jimmy? What do you see? Where are you? What's the horizon you're looking out on as you think about going forward with this company?
Yeah, I think all those things that Stergios mentioned, continuing to bring the latest and greatest in AI research, improving the user experience, and then also accelerating our developers by leveraging what other people have built so we could focus on unsolved problems. So one of the problems that we want to focus on is, now that we are really great at finding on-point decisions, how can we help lawyers synthesize that? I think that is one of the that's one way that computers can continue to help people. One advantage that computers have over people is that they can do things in parallel. So like our system can read and evaluate millions of decisions at the same time. But also what computers are good at is holding multiple things in its head at the same time. So there's that rule of thumb that people could remember 5 plus or minus 2 things at the same time. So I think there's an opportunity there for us to build systems that could take lots of pieces of information, more pieces of information than any person can hold in their mind at the same time, and essentially discover insights that were impossible or difficult to find beforehand. So that's one of the areas that I'm really excited about.
We'll get back to my interview in just a moment, but first, let's take a break to hear from the sponsors who generously support Law Next. And now, let's continue this week's interview. I hate to ask this question because it's so stereotypical, but I still so often hear lawyers talk about this idea that they see AI as this technology that threatens their existence, essentially. The idea that robots are going to take away their jobs. And the New York Times, I think, had that headline once. Robots are going to. I mean, how do you see what do you see as the role of AI in law practice and in the legal profession?
It's really about augmenting the professional. That replacement stuff that is good for headlines. You could imagine that it attracts a lot of people to articles or to news channels, but it's just not like the truth. It allows lawyers to do their job better and more efficiently, increasing their capacity. But I think these fears are natural. I mean, in the 80s, people thought computers were going to wipe out people's jobs. And you could search on YouTube for those 60-minute specials about like the advent of the computer and people saying the same stuff that they're saying today, but about a desktop computer, which is kind of like, we see it as a dumb software now. I think we're going to sort of see the same thing in 10, 20 years, where we're going to like look at Ross. It's intelligent today, but in 10 years, it's just going to be software. And
I think just to like summarize Jimoh's point, like succinctly, it's all about leveling up the lawyer and allowing them to produce, faster, better results. I personally look at anything to do with AI as partnering in and collaborating with individuals to make things better. Will there be efficiencies in replacing some activities? Absolutely, but at the end of the day, I would assume this will create more business and more opportunity to augment their revenue and be able to do these types of activities in a much more quality and richer way than what they're used to right now.
But are there maybe opportunities for taking the lawyer out of the picture down the road, in the sense of, if I'm a consumer with a legal question, and as AI gets better and better at answering legal questions, do you see a consumer application for Ross? I mean, do you see a consumer-facing potential there?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to take the lawyer out of the equation.
Yeah, and I don't mean that totally. But I mean, is there an application for a Ross or other AI tools to enhance the ability of, like we all go to WebMD now for for our medical questions. Is there an opportunity there for consumers? Yeah,
it might be. I can imagine a future where consumers are using Ross to find information about the law. But what's going to be hard for an AI system to do is to simultaneously understand the client and their needs and the law to help them make legal decisions. And that is where lawyers provide the most value, helping with that strategy, helping you make legal decisions. And that's just not something that AI can do with the methods and the theories that we have today.
Right. And that goes back to your point about augmentation. I mean, you could help them find the law, but somebody still has to synthesize all that.
And make trade-offs, with some which are emotional, right?
And I think to your WebMD example, it's you always go back to the expert,
right?
And either maybe even a second expert to be able to validate your thinking and approaches, you do follow more or less their instructions on the next step.
Right.
So,
WebMD has just told me I'm going to die in a week. Call my doctor and assure me I'll be fine in the morning. Yeah. So what else? What else is on your mind in terms of this? What else you might want to talk about today?
Maybe Sturge, you could talk about how Canada's tech scene has evolved over the years.
Oh yeah, that is a really interesting point.
That's really important. I think that at Toronto and the region, like in Montreal, Ottawa, and Waterloo, and of course out in kind of the west parts of the country as well, there's been like significant investment in technology and presence. There's VCs that are settled here and are providing both knowledge as well as funds to be able to get really important ideas off the ground, and so having that and the university scene that's like very interconnected with the day-to-day activities is really critical. Having that support and being able to take good talent out of those schools that are just around the corner from here, fuel the needs that these startups have to get like stuff out the door. And I think it's also from my perspective, like underpinning just the wider Canadian economy as a technology place where people can come anywhere in the world and get things done. And so you have a wide range of like consumer spectrum and solutions that are happening here. And they're happening both at the ground level, like small startups, all the way to the big companies that are here, developing their presence. You take any of the top 10 ones that from Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, they all have presence in the region, and as well as them being integrated into the school system. So I think we always, though, I always want to put this on the table, is we're as a trying to differentiate ourselves on how we do the raising of funds and the supporting, and versus how Silicon Valley and other places. So I think we're still trying to establish that identity, but it's fair to say that it's unique and different than anywhere else.
Yeah.
And
with a particular emphasis on AI as well.
Yes.
Not just technology broadly, but there's a lot of AI science going on here in the Toronto area.
Yeah, absolutely. The brain trust of AI is in Canada. Neural networks were really popular.
So it'll be Canadian robots.
Canadian robots. Yeah. Neural networks were really popular in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, and then they went out of fashion. And if you were studying neural networks in the 80s and 90s, that was like really taboo. You're just like, yeah, good luck getting published or finishing your PhD. So Canada was one of the only places funding this research. Geoffrey Hinton moved to U of T because of that, also because he disagreed with some of the politics in the US at the time. And then when suddenly they proved the application of neural networks, like there were so many applications and so much money behind those applications, but only a few people, Geoffrey Hinton, his grad students, and his colleagues who really understood it. So that's one of the reasons why Toronto has an advantage in AI. And one of the other great things about Toronto, I think, is Canada's immigration policies. So one of the things that made Silicon Valley great, I mean, it started with like the space races, that they we're attracting the best and the brightest from around the world. Yeah, you could pull from the global talent pool. That's not the case today. It's super hard to attract or to get people through the immigration process. Yeah. But in Canada, with some of the programs that we have, we could take someone from Korea and immigrate them here in under 2 weeks, which is amazing. So in terms of the talent pool that we'll
have to get the current White House administration listening to this podcast.
Yes. Yes. So in terms of where we could pull talent from, and then experienced people like Stergios who can help grow and develop that talent, and the funding from the VCs to fund these ideas. There's a lot of factors that are coming together nicely.
Yeah. Were you always in Toronto? Or
I was always born and raised in Toronto. I did experience the Valley for 4 to 5 years. So I did a startup there. And so I've got the connections and the immigration experience and the experience of like trying to hire, which was extremely difficult even a decade or so ago. So I have that kind of balance.
Yeah. And for anybody who's listening to this who doesn't realize this, Ross started here in Toronto, but you guys kind of migrated to Silicon Valley for a while, and then came back here, and you've still got I guess you have an office in San Francisco area, but this is now your main headquarters where your development and most of your people are.
Yeah.
And you're not. I mean, you're from Texas. Right?
I was born in Toronto.
You're born in Toronto.
Raised in Texas. But I like both.
Yeah. All right. Just one thing I kind of wanted to ask you right at the outset that we kind of didn't get to, but we've talked around it a lot, I think. But just in terms of your working with the legal profession, what do you think it is that lawyers still don't get right don't understand about AI? I mean, is it just the whole robot thing, or is there something more fundamental to their perception or lack of perception about what AI means in technology and within the legal profession in particular?
Yeah. My opinion on the matter is probably different from a lot of people's opinion, but I think AI can be a distraction. I think you should talk about the benefits and the outcomes, which is this can help you do your work faster, do your work better. Just try it. Forget what's behind the hood.
Right.
If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Right.
The discussion about AI is, I don't think, productive.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
And I also think from I started off in AI many years ago. It went as a peak in the industry, but then because of performance and system capacity and the like, it didn't go until recently resurfacing. And so just like any other technology, it will take time, and it'll find its way, as Jimoh mentioned, through the benefits of experiencing the applications that are offered, and they're going to be entrenched more and more in both their professional and non-professional lives, if they want it or not. Like today, Uber is driven by all this infrastructure.
Right.
We use it. We're okay with it. Why? Because it's good. And much like anyone else, as a consumer out there, lawyers, I assume, also take Ubers, but they don't question the technology.
Right.
So I think that the proof of the value and the impact is going to be inevitable, and it'll just need a little bit of time.
Right.
And we're here to support with things like this, the education, and anyone who wants to dig in. I think you mentioned correctly, with the right context, give them what information they need if required.
Yeah. Isn't there the saying that AI is what we call technology until it matures, or something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. A last word? Any last words before we wrap up?
Any last words? I had the last word last time. I'm going to give it to Stergios this time.
Well, one, it's really cool to talk about these dynamics, and I think we need to get kind of this type of stuff happening more often and build momentum, not only for Ross, but just for the entire, legal domain, because I think it'll be a win-win. And we're here to make that type of contribution back to the community, and help everyone become better in what they do.
Good. Well, thanks a lot. It's been a really interesting conversation. Fun to talk to you.
Same here. Thanks.
Bye.
Well, a big thanks to Stergios and Jimoh for taking the time to sit down and have this conversation with me today. I really appreciate it. And for hosting me here in their R&D labs in Toronto. Before I end, let me take a moment to thank the sponsor who keeps this show running, MyCase. MyCase, with thousands of customers, is a trusted practice management solution helping lawyers across the country run organized, efficient, and successful law firms. You can try MyCase for free today at mycase.com. And as always, a big thanks to Ben Ambrogi for producing and editing the show. That's it for this week. This is Bob Ambrogi.